Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk and a review of the AMX M451 Tier 9 French heavy tank, the new mini line that comes off the AMX M445, and supposedly the armored heavy brawling tanks for the French. You can see that I've got it here in my garage for you to take a look at. Quite a big, large tank. So as usual, we will go through an overview of the tank. We'll take a look at any tech tree considerations, how it goes to the tech tree. We'll jump over to a comparison with its peers at Tier 9 heavy tank land, and we'll come back, take a look at my setup, and look at how I did on the grind up to the Tier 10, which I have finished. And then I've got 3 examples of gameplay for you for the AMX M451. Let's get started. All right, this is another tank that was basically blueprint, a variant of the M4 heavy tank. Somewhere around 1949, they were designing or thinking about designing this thing, and they had multiple layouts for the whole. Basically, it was a big old turret with a quite large gun and a lot of armor was the general idea, all more or less pointing forward. But it's a blueprint-only tank, and here's what it, or at least what Wargaming said it would have looked like, one of the possibilities of what it would look like. As far as in-game goes, you can see it's a great big billboard-sized tank. The turret is quite large. One thing to think about with a tank with these turrets like this, the ST has that, the T29 has that big kind of tumor at the back. When you turn your turret to the side and you're hiding behind something, realize a lot of times that back portion of the turret sticks out from behind as you're moving your gun around. So while you're paying attention to where your butt end is going as far as your hole is, you also need to pay attention to these large turrets that have big protrusions out the back sticking out from behind obstacles and walls and rocks and things like that. So it's quite large. Look at the low profile of the WZ-111. So this makes this thing quite easy to hit from a side shot. The mill's a little dude right there. This is an outlier. It's hittable from space. You get over here, the 5120 is kind of the same size, but it's got a smaller turret profile, so it's not quite as easy. Conqueror's quite large as well, maybe not quite as tall. The ST1, this is the new HD model, so it's changed a little bit. This is a bit more compact, I believe. I don't know if the actual size of it is smaller, but that surprised me a bit that it is so much smaller. And it is kind of the same big breakthrough bully tank as the 51 is. The Maushin, of course, is the Maushin. It's a great big beast right there. The 4503, similar size, maybe slightly smaller as far as the tall profile piece of it goes. E75, a big kid, and of course you got the 103, which that's a very similar looking turret, and I wonder if they don't share some of the same design specifications as the Allies were kind of talking back and forth in the early 50s, mid 50s kind of thing like that. But that is the overview for that guy. Let's jump into the tech. The tech tree is fairly straightforward for the M451. I've done a review on the 65T and the M445, so you'll know that if you've watched those, it's 5 crew members from the ARL, I believe. Is that right? Yes. No, 5 crew members from the G1B, 4 for the B1. So 5, 5, 5, 5, all the way through to this mini line up to the M454. You'll drop a crew member if you're going off onto the AMX 50B. Remember that this is splitting off, so you'll have to grind whichever one of these 2 lines you want and then go back to the M445 and grind another X number of experience to get to the other line, which is actually not bad. I mean, this is a pretty comfortable tank, and I've got a review out there as well if you want to take a look at that. But we're talking about the 9 right here, so if we click into there, you can see that it's got a couple guns, another turret it needs to unlock, some engines and things, and you get onto the M454, which is the ultimate. There is a argument out there for some people to use the 120. I would say that, and what's happening here with these French tanks is interesting. The 65T has the same thing going on. The 120, if you look at it, has a 218 penetration, and this 100 has a 232 penetration, but the Alpha is 100 less. When you go to the M454, or the, sorry, 51, you'll see that the 127 has 242 penetration and the 120 has 400 penetration. So 242, I'm sorry, 242 penetration, I'm looking at the Alpha. 242 penetration, this one has 257. So you're getting more penetration for less Alpha with the smaller gun. I will tell you, I tried the smaller gun on this one for a while. I did the same thing with the AMX 65T for a while, and it's just not worth it. At this tier, you're talking about Alpha being king, and I understand DPM and penetration, but run the big gun. You want that extra average damage going in there. So there's a lot of things going on with that. A lot of times people simply don't respect the smaller gun. They're more likely to push on you because you're not hitting them for that much damage. You start seeing 300 or less damage, even though this is an average at 400, it's pretty easy to roll that 380, 390. You'll see then tier 9s start to have a little bit less respect for you right there. When you're dropping 470, 500, then they're going to think about it a little bit more right there. Those are small things, but I really recommend the bigger gun right there. So that is really the only thing about the tech tree is both the crew. Realize the FCM 50T trains 5 guys, so it will easily train any of the 5 crew tanks along this line. Most people are looking to get their crews up to the tier 10 for the ultimate tier 10 kind of thing. So you can easily run your tier 10 M454 or tier 9 M451 crew in the 50T for any supplemental experience as you're going through. So that is the tech tree. All right, let's do the comparison here, and there's some interesting things to note. You see the overall number on firepower is right in the middle. Realize that's Wargaming's number. You got the 5120 showing at 445. That's an auto loader. I have that as its French stablemate at tier 9, just so you can kind of compare and contrast. Although with an auto loader, some of these numbers don't mean quite as much, or they don't mean the same thing. But let's look at the average damage at 470 with the large gun. You can see that the WZ is at 490. You've got the VK and the E75 at 490 and the Malshin at 490. The rest of them either at 440 or down at 400. So they're all not too far off from each other. But there's an interesting trade-off here with the M441 because we'll get to penetration in just a second. But let's drop down here and take a look at the rate of fire or the reload time. So at 12.75 for the M451 to get 470 alpha, and then you get over to the 2 German tanks and it's 1505 to get just that extra 20 damage alpha right there. That makes this gun actually a pretty fantastic gun as far as the alpha it gets and the reload it gets. -8 and 15 on the elevation is decent. The -8 is quite comfortable, especially for this big of a heavy tank out there. Aiming time is best in class, so that helps out. Let's jump back up to the penetration then. And so 242, while fairly low amongst its peers, is not that far off from the top in class, which is only 258. And because everyone's dabbing 2 at this tier anyway, it's really not that big a deal. 242 is plenty to deal with any tier 8s or the majority of tier 8s and lower tanks you may see. And dabbing 2 is going to take care of nearly any tier 9 or 10 that you show up against out there. So there's where that argument about running that smaller gun goes, with a little extra penetration. But frankly, I don't see that big a deal really between 242 and 258. Damage per minute down here is solidly in the middle. The T10 ends up winning that overall, but not by a whole bunch. You know, it's at 2,239, and you're talking 2,211 with the M451. That's an interesting statistic, DPM, for me. It is important in some cases, but because this game has RNG and the way it's played, as in you don't get to just sit there and shoot and shoot and shoot and hit and hit and hit, DPM has a much lower importance than other things, say as alpha or reload time and some other of the stats. But clearly you don't want to be outclassed by 500 or 600 like you will see in some tank tiers and types. But right here, these are all pretty close, although the Malshin is sitting down there at 2,000, trading what is supposed to be heavy armor and hit points for some of its DPM. Speaking of hit points, we get the 1900. That's okay, not amazing, okay, but it's not as fragile as the 5120, say. The armor is interesting. So this is where we get to the discussion that this is supposed to be the heavily armored assault tank in the French line. And what I found when I played it and looking at the numbers is, as far as the hull goes, it's okay. The lower plate is really, or sorry, the sides are really pretty bad at 60. They're pretty awful. That's not good at all. And the hull armor at 180 is decent. It does have a fairly weak lower plate that's not good. But the turret's where it shines at 300, best in class. That turret is just a massive bounce machine. You'll have a lot of fun, especially with just a slight wiggle or move to spoil any kind of aiming at hatches or whatever weak spots there. It can just be a bounce-a-thon. But be careful exposing your exposing your hull, especially the lower part. And because the sides are so weak, be very careful about sticking your nose out too much while you're doing some kind of angling or side scrape and letting them get into the side of your tank, because that is not good with this tank at all. Turret good, hull sides bad. Let's put it that way. For the engine power and specific, it's decent. It's actually a relatively mobile tier 9 tank. I wouldn't say you're zipping around, but you're certainly not feeling very constrained by its mobility. I did enjoy that actually quite a bit. It gets up to 40 It's not going to hang with the 5120, but nobody is in this class. 40 is decent. There's other faster tanks with the WZ and such, but it is not bad at all. Down to concealment, yeah, it's a great big tank. It's not really going to hide very well unless it's just behind 14 bushes or out of draw range or God knows what there. And spotting, as always, who freaking cares? That's not true. It is important. There are parts of the game where those mechanics matter, but for this tank, probably not so much. You shouldn't be putting binoculars on your AMX M451, let's put it that way. Or a camo net for that matter. All right, well, I almost forgot to say what I would hang my hat on with this tank if I was forced to say something good about it. Clearly, the gun is pretty darn good. It's got a pretty good rate of fire, but that turret is fantastic. So if you can find a way to use the turret and the good gun, that's what you need to work on with this tank. And it's got enough mobility to get where it needs to be early, so that's also good for the heavy tank. As far as my setup goes, pretty standard. I've got all the top modules. That's the only thing I'll really talk about. No sense going through all the lower modules. I have a rammer, I've got vents, and I'm running a vert stab. So the one before it, I believe, has a GLD, or maybe it's the M445 has GLD, but it allows a vert stab on this particular tank. So that's what I would go with as opposed to the GLD right there. And I think the vents are the way to go here as well. A decent amount of ammo. So I'm running 22, 6, and 2. This is one of those tanks where its gold is actually just another AP round, so it doesn't have those APCR advantages / disadvantages on there. So you'll see that it is the 242 at 100 meters, whereas this one is sitting at 270 at 100 meters. And when it's a gold AP round, it tends to have a much less penetration bonus, I guess is how I'm trying to say it, than we're at APCR, although it does not have some of the negatives of APCR. So you're getting up to 270, that's pretty good. And I'm carrying 2 HE in case I have some kind of reset situation, or I've just got to kill a low hit point, high armor target that I'm having a hard time pinning. Small repair, small first aid, and a large fire extinguisher or an automatic fire extinguisher. Clearly you can use a large if you want on that, or large automatic, however you want to say it. That's just me being chintzy in there. So let's talk about the crew. For the crew, I had to go to my M454, the tier 10, because I actually moved the crew up into that tank once I unlocked it. That crew had been sitting in my FCM 50T. If you've watched my M445 review, then I've already discussed all of this in that. But the point of it is that they'd been running around in my FCM 50T for years. And we're probably already a 3, almost 4 skill crew. Once I started re-grinding the M445 through the AMX 65T onto the tier 9 that we're reviewing right now, I got it all the way up to 64% on the 5th skill. So you can see that this is a very good crew, and they've got all the standard heavy tank skills and perks. Just really quickly, without belaboring it too much, you can see there, Brothers 6, Recon Repairs Concealment. Brothers Snapshot Deadeye Repairs Concealment. I'm running Brothers Smooth Ride Off-Road Repairs Clutch. Brothers Situational Awareness Repairs Concealment Firefighting. And Brothers Safe Adrenaline Repairs Firefighting. Realize with a dedicated radio operator, you can then run the situational awareness perk or skill on him as opposed to putting it on your commander where they have those dual qual guys. That spreads it out a little bit and makes it easier to get some of those extra skills in there. Adding some repairs, adding some concealment, and maybe getting into some firefighting. Looking at the gunner real quick, checking out the personal file, what I have left skill-wise on the table is not much. There's armor or designated target. Some would argue armor is more important than maybe one of those things, I don't know, like Deadeye potentially. I'm not really sure where this crew came from initially. Deadeye to me is not a hugely useful skill, so that was something I probably trained back in the day when I first went through the M445. But there you have it. That is the crew. A good crew, obviously. Your results may vary depending on your crew. So let's take a quick look at how I did right here. It took me 70 games to get to the tier 10. My review on the MX M445, it was hard to tell what the stats were because I'd played it so much while I was grinding up to the AMX 5100. But this was a wholly new tank, so this is going from 0 to 70, as you can tell right there, with my current experience and skill at the game. So I ended up having a decent time in this. 70 games, 61%, over 1100 average base experience, running over here 1.62 damage ratio, destruction 2.42 guys killed for every time I died. Look at the armor use efficiency has gone up quite a ways from the tanks before it. It actually has some pretty decent armor on it. 70 battles is getting to a decent sample size. I would say it's still low. Some people will say 200, some people say 100. So that could normalize a little bit. It may be, but if I played it another 30 battles, I'd be more like 59%, or worse, potentially being closer to my average kind of damage. But if you look at the 5120, a tank I unlocked a long time ago, you can see that the stats are quite a bit lower on that one. So this is reflecting a lot of my current skill in the tank. Still, though, doing a pretty decent job with it. 2,627. That's not burning down the town or anything, but it's a decent amount of damage. And damage received at 1,600. Assist at 638. Spotted 1.53. That means I'm actually with a heavy getting fairly far forward pretty quickly. And this tank can do that. It's got decent mobility. And 1.49 enemy vehicles destroyed a game right there. I had an 8-kill game somewhere along the way in those 70 games or 70 battles that I had. And did 5,924 maximum. So did pretty decent. If you look at the comparison between the 5120, where I am running 2,100 average, 2006. So older stats right there. You go to the ST1, which is a tank I'm actually pretty good in as well. So running 2627 in the AMX. Go to the ST1 at 133 battles and 64%. And I'm running 2435. So those numbers are pretty close. More than likely, this would come down somewhat if I played another 50, 100 battles in it. But I don't think so. I don't think too much. It's actually pretty decent tank. Let's go ahead and move on to some gameplay examples. All right, for the first example, you can see I've loaded in here to Serene Coast. I am top tier in a 510, and based on what I am facing with only one artillery, I'm headed down here to the peninsula. As a general rule, I avoid going down here because it's so easy to get stuffed in arty, but because of what I am facing, I feel like I'm going to have a pretty good time down here. I have selected just a regular AP, and I will switch over to gold right away. I kind of expect to see some of their more heavily armored tanks down here. Taking a look at what they have, that being the E75, maybe the 34, an IS-6, or perhaps the Super. Right now, though, we've got a Scorpion, a prototype, and an IS-6 coming in here. There's the CDC back there. There's the IS-6. So we'll come in here and we'll start working on this corner, hoping to get a shot on the Scorpion G. This position here is a decent place, at least initially, to not get hit by artillery, but I get aggressive and move forward. And there's just me and a T-32, so I'm really kind of testing out the turret capability. There's an S1. You can see that the accuracy on the gun is actually really nice. And I'm able to come across this piece of terrain by just putting my turret out. I have to expose a little more of my hole there than I want. Thinking about shooting into that bush in case the S1's there. But overall, not bad. Even that IS-6, if he's going to come up over there, should have a decent chance of popping through the top of his turret. That is very unwise on the part of the Scorpion G, and I take him down. Situation with the old, you don't need the gold going on right here. The Sturv, trying to be hole down there. And I've got the T-32 finally backing me up, and the Udes back there. And I'm not really facing a whole bunch right here. There goes the Sturv. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got a prototype, a Tiger 2, and there's the prototype. Bounce off him with an angle hull. He's got pretty good hull armor right there. Now I've got the Tiger 2 coming up, so I've got another 3 guys to deal with here. And I'll just be dueling with these guys. He unwisely gives me too much of his front armor. That's a situation you can run into with this tank as well. You saw that he came out too far and gave me the side of his tank instead of the front, so just a little too far right there. Popping one into the IS-6, right into his turret. And that's probably one of the only spots where I really need the gold so far, or if I'm going to try to punch straight through the whole armor of this guy. Tried to go for the cheek, that ends up bouncing, and now I've got a T-34. It looks like he was trying to come up and over, but I think that's too steep right there for him. So now I'm worried, oh crap, now he's going around behind me. But I do have the Udes and the Scorpion, so he's something to deal with later. The pin there, I'm not really quite certain where he pinned me. Maybe on the weak point on the turret right there. Maybe I got my hole out too far. Now the Tiger 2 is here. You can see I've blocked 1,960, and this is mostly turret, right? Mostly blocking from the turret. The gun is accurate enough I can poke out and do snapshots like that, and just really a comfortable tank for this situation. You can see all the dings on the top of my turret where they're trying to go through the weak spot up there or through the top. But Proto has proven that he can go through me. This IS-6 is attempting to come around our side, so let's go ahead and mess with him. See if my whole armor can handle it, or can even get his gun depression. Not quite. He's probably staring right at my turret. Now the Tiger's going to try to come around behind me. Put one through, another bounce. I think that went into my turret, into the mantlet. IS-6 is like, holy crap. My reload is comparable to the IS-6, so I'm reloading with more damage. With a better damage capability. And more pen, obviously, with the 175 that guy's running. Put 420 down on him. And now we just got to swing around. Where is this Proto? There he is. Right into the dirt. He shoots. Again, a comparable reload capability to this thing, so we'll just come around. He's being sandwiched by two people. This is what you do with people who are being sandwiched. You just come around, force them to pick one or the other, and kill them off. And now we're going to head back. This is a lesson beyond the scope of just a replay, but I keep saying this in hopes that people will learn it. If all you ever did was win your flank and turned around and went back to your cap, you would end up winning well more than you lose. I'm talking about easily almost an automatic 55% player, as long as the rest of your game is solid, obviously. And you can see that I turn around. There's a decent reason for that as well, because we are getting threatened a little bit, although we still have a 112 over on the west side and a WZ hanging out right there. You see that the T-32 and a Scorpion, for whatever reason, have decided to push into their cap, you know, because we should go to their cap. They don't know why, they just know that it's a cap and they're going to drive that way. On this particular map, the way I'm going across here is dangerous. If there's guys in those buildings over there, they can't shoot you in the side. I'm just counting noses on what I see, and I'm thinking maybe there's not enough over there to matter. And now I'm looking for the rest of their tanks. So the T-50's gone back. He ends up taking out the Scorpion, who for some reason wants to go poke on a corner. And now I'm going to go ahead and have to back up here because I'm feeling a little bit more defensive than I want to be. I can't help that T-32. He's gone to a very stupid spot. He continues to push. He's going to get flanked, sniped, taken down, or just plain old swarmed. There we go. Bat Chat's in on him. Maybe I can get a shot on the Bat Chat if I pop out here. No, got some rocks in my way. That's too bad. Now I'm going to come down and try to get shots, but this T-32 is going to end up dying really quick. Oh, got spotted by something that is not good. And off they go. Quick shot in him, but I can't get him. Now I've got to get back into my little hidey hole back here. And we'll back up. Now, you might say, well, Guido, you should have gone and helped the T-32. The two of you may have been able to take those two guys down. I kind of doubt that. I think we'd end up getting swarmed anyway. However, at the time that I turned back around, coming back was definitely the best idea based on what was showing up. Guess what their team did? They all went back. See how they all congregated back to the cap? If the T-32 had come with me, he'd still be alive. And now we're just looking for, alright, where are these dudes? Where are they going to show up? There's one. Excellent. Let's put a shot into him. There's a shot, but holy cow, I got hit by something. He saw me. Did he see me or did someone else see me? I wasn't sure. It seems like he shouldn't have been able to see me right there, but potentially he did. Or there's somebody back behind me that spotted me. Or another light a little bit closer who sees me. Also a possibility. So now we're just trying to find... I know the lightweight's over here. He's the one guy I know where he is. I really would like to catch him out in the open. And now we're just looking. The thing about this phase of the game, it is wise to be a little mobile while you're doing this. Look around. A lot of people want to just sit in one spot, find a corner, hide, and point in one direction. As long as you're smart while you move around, just be careful about it. And I find all three of them over here, and here comes the Bat Chat 12T. I'm really hoping to keep this guy alive, but down he goes. T-50 is probably the most dangerous thing they got. Down he goes. I know the E-75 is an issue. I'm reloading. get a little of the turret twitch right there. And there he is. Maybe I can get him. No, I was waiting for that 12T maybe to try to jump me. There goes this guy. I'm going to run for it. I'll just snap one off. See if I can get lucky, but I don't. The next one I really want to get rid of is that E75. Oh, there's the bat chat. It's very possible that's the guy that spotted me earlier. He was just in one of those bushes over there. Now I'm just looking for this E75. Is that guy going to push on me? There goes that turret twitch again. I was having issues right about there with my ping. You can see it's up at 300 something. One of the reasons I was being timid in this game, to some extent right here, is I was having real issues with my ping. And then it dropped down right about there. So just at what I thought was a very critical part of the game, it started going crazy, and then it came back to me. I thought, okay, this is more comfortable. I can work with this. I have the 112 behind me, so I sort of expect he'll see if someone tries to come around me. Outstanding. So there's this guy. Just aim for that little weak spot. Good accuracy on the gun. You can see it worked out. There's that silly lightweight again. He's still hanging out over there somewhere. I'll just get behind these rocks. If he wants to come get me, he's going to have to move forward. There's that guy. He's running around, going crazy. There's the lightweight, so he's still out there. I'm thinking, you know what, let's find... Oh, there he is. Thank you. Down goes the E75. So I knew the 12T was isolated on that side. I knew the lightweight was well over there. Last place I saw was the E75. Last place I saw the E75 was right there, and I figured, hey, this might be an opportunity to jump on this guy. And now I'm thinking, let's cross these tracks and see if we can't go track down this dude and take out this bat chat before his T54 Mod 1, or sorry, T54 lightweight buddy can get to me. Let's see if I can shoot. Oh, that was ill-advised. If I'd have just slowed down a little bit and taken that shot a little more aimed, I probably would have shaved a bunch of hit points off of that 12T. This 112 has been relatively useless. He's done essentially nothing that I could tell in the game. So I'm not really working with him on purpose, because if I was, he'd have been doing a little bit more to help me track these guys down. Between the two of us, we could have walked into any one of these groups of tanks and wiped the floor with them. But since he sort of sat back there by the artillery the whole time, I more or less disregarded him as even a part of the game. So I was using him as a spotter to some extent on what was back there behind me, and now I'm using him as the guy that's going to clear off the peninsula and keep any tanks from going straight onto the cap while I trundle along to their cap and start to try to force them to come into me. This is a kind of dangerous plan, because had I got on the cap and that guy not droned across in front of me and got killed, the two of them could have conceivably got on two sides of me and caused me all kinds of headache. Shooting me when I'm pointed at one direction and the other one popping out, and that 12T especially doing that little clip thing into the side. If I could keep them to the front of me, I wouldn't have a whole bunch of trouble. There goes the bat chat and the Udes back there, who I've completely forgotten about. Actually, the Udes sitting back there, whether he's actually playing or not, I don't know. But I'm just going to sit on the cap. Even if the 12T shows up, I should be able to take him out, but he ends up crashing. I'm assuming he rammed the Udes to try to get a few more hit points in there. Ends up being a win, 5,814. You can see that when this tank is able to keep its front to people and use its turret, it's a pretty good frontline, brutal brawler. All right, let's move on to the next one. The first battle was showed you with a 1500 base experience, class 1 mastery. It was actually a Radley's as well. This one's going to be a 1300 class 1. Turns out that this tank is actually pretty good, and the early adopters tend to be very good players. So add those things both together, and it takes quite a bit to master it. In fact, I'm not certain I actually ever did master it. I'll have to take a look at it after this to see if I did. It may be still sitting on a class 1 mastery even now as I've stopped playing it. But we're on airfield here. I spawned in on the east side, and I'm going to go up to the heavy brawling area, which is basically where heavy brawlers should go. And we have a 357, so I am middle tier, which is pretty good, because based on what I'm facing, IS-7, 30B, and a Sheridan, I don't have any reasonable expectation to worry too much about being able to pen anything. The Type 4s and Type 5s are somewhat problematic for this tank. The pen is relatively low, especially with this particular gun. Unless you dab 2, and I don't have a whole lot of 2. And even with the 2, you're going to have trouble with some of the Type 4 and Type 5 armor. But with these guys, shouldn't be a huge problem, and if we work on weak spots and whatnot, we should do alright. Put one in the back of a Pershing. The side of a Pershing is always going to be a weak spot. The Marbrecker is just being foolish. I don't know what his plan is right there, to be quite honest. Hoping to keep this guy tracked, put another one into him. Down he goes, and we've got the Type 4 and the IS-7. The IS-7 I do have to be careful about. There he goes, he's fired. So we'll come around the corner, see if we can do something against this guy. There we go. Looks like a high roll for me because it was still showing a little bit of orange for the pen, so I got lucky on that. Plus he was angling it a little bit. Now I'm just working this IS-7. I do want to be careful about going around the corner. I don't want to eat any TD shots. The Udes is over on his cap. The Foch is down below. I'm not really too worried about what they may have up there, other than I think it is the 704. Is that right? Yes, the 704, which looks like it hasn't been spotted yet. I still got the Bat Chat 25T. He's up in the north on that rock. It'd be nice for him to go away so we had a little bit more freedom of movement down low. Just trying to bait this guy. Shoot me dumb. Shoot me dumb. Take a stupid shot. Or shoot me dumb. Put a shot into the side of the Type 4. Looks like the 7 is tracked. Then he starts moving. So I'm going to... Nope, I was going to sell out, and I'm not going to. And guess what? We got this guy. An OHO. And that's a nice thing about a Tier 9 heavy gun. Things like the OHO, while it is fairly heavily armored, you do have a reasonable expectation of going through it. I noticed this Ude's late, and I'm able to take him down. Every time I gave him side turret right there, he was probably starting to slobber, hoping he could flap me right into it. So a little bit late on those. Marbrecker is using a little bit too much of the side right there. He's cutting into what I can use. That's something to think about when you're working an echelon. Here comes the Type 4. I know the OHO's down there still as well, so I'm sort of trying to watch every direction at once. They're doing a decent job of pushing down below, so I feel like they're going to be a little bit more aggressive here. That's only good for a track. And there he is, Mr. Object 704 with his 715 damage. He's on a reload. I'm trying to see if I can figure out where he is. Yeah, he's probably in that bush. Marbrecker's gone down, probably to the OHO. And now I'm the only guy keeping them honest on the top side here, so let's just see if we can keep working on this fella. There's a bounce. OHO takes a shot with, looks like AP potentially. And we'll come around the corner and start working on these dudes. Not really a great shot. I should have gone for that rack up top. Here comes, holy cow, where'd the IS-3 come from? I came down here thinking I'd be fine. I wasn't really facing anything I was too worried about, but here comes Mr. IS-3 out of nowhere, and I end up tracking him for no damage. Probably would have done better to go underneath. He shoots. I'm trying to back up. Decent backup speed. Come on, 103. Don't stop me from doing this. And down he goes. And we got the IS-7 up above. Back down here, I've got 4,000 damage. Looks like they're all stacked up here, except for the 704, who's probably still back on that ridge. So we push them a little bit. Oh, nice side armor. Let's get this guy. Nope. How about this guy? There we go. Would have done better to go for that back wheel. Ooh, it took my 110E5 out. IS-7's looking at me. Reload's fairly comfortable on this tank. Happens pretty quickly for a Tier 9. Foch is trying to make a run for it. He's thinking, well, I got to go forward to live. Can I go forward to live? Well, you can live once. So they're blasting people as they go. I'm thinking, oh man, if we're not careful here, these guys are going to be all over us. But here comes the 30B. Oh, I shot my own guy. Terrible. That was awful. Actually had a discussion with that guy afterwards. He was good about it. He was pretty salty about it initially, but I explained to him, dude, my fault. I was just trying to get in there and get a shot on that 30B before he killed you. But he wouldn't have killed you because you had enough hit points, at least until I shot the hit points. And that took a little longer than I would have liked. That didn't go very well, especially with shooting my own guy. But we make it happen eventually. Yep, so he's mad. Guido, I'm an ass. Yep, sorry, brother. Like I said, we discussed it afterwards via private message, and all was good after. Just looking for the 704. Where are you, fella? Come out, wherever you are. Oh, there he is. Oh, I'm stuck on something. Oh, man, I go down there. He ends up dying to the WT Aufpanzer IV. So, pretty good brawling tank, man. Very, very comfortable, good reload, decent pen, decent mobility. Is able to really work in those heavy brawling areas pretty much no problem. Let's move on to the third example. For the third and final example, we are here on highway, and I've headed off to the town we spawned in the northeast. I'm headed down to the southeast. We're going to brawl in the town, and our Scorpion G eats it right off the bat. Good job, dude. Go highlight yourself on a ridge where known scouts are, and you're dead. Anywho, heading into the town, I am in the middle tier of a 357, which is a decent setup. You can see that the enemy's got 2 Type 5s, and that is going to be potentially problematic. As I was driving in here and looking at what I had backing me up, I thought, man, I am probably in some pretty good danger. We get those Super Conquerors in there and they're smart about it, we can probably machine gun down these Type 5s pretty quick, but they're definitely going to be an issue early on. And so I decided to go ahead and anchor this side. Knowing that the Type 5s are not going to make it, I'm going to put my front armor here and just try to get a free shot on this guy. And I don't know what happened. Apparently I hit his turret and bounced off the new massive turret of the 4502. This was probably not the wisest thing, especially with artillery in this game. I'm really asking him to hit me right here. Probably should have covered up behind this building. The other Super Conqueror, one of the two, pushes in. So that's not a bad idea. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's pretty predictable. That someone's going to show up. We take him. Got a grill down by the road. Still no sign of the Type 5s, but they're very slow, so I expect them to show up any moment now. Shouldn't be too long before we see Type 5s coming in. So I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive myself and come on in here. There's a shot finally there. 4502 goes down. That 110 E4, and there they are. They're hanging out in the center right there. So I put my side armor because I'm just dumb. Try to put a shot into him. Flat plate on the lower, and that's that example I was talking about. I really need gold to have any chance of going through these things. These big dirt guns. No, there's a bounce, so there's a good example of a relatively low pin roll is going to have trouble. Not really aiming at the actual weak spots, which are the hatches. Quite frankly, I'm not exactly 100% sure where they are on the tank at this range, especially with all this stuff in the way. So I get another shot into him, but now I'm down to regular AP. The Super Conqueror is doing his best, but those derp guns are working him over. But the 110 that puts a big hit on him. I'm going to try to take out this guy. I don't quite get there. Oh, geez. Walking right out there, and then I bounce off that guy. So poorly played. I went after the 65T, but wasn't really paying attention to what the big fatties were doing. Definitely, though, looking to get around these dudes. Let's see what we can do here. A shot up high into where basically his ammo rack is right there. Just trying to mess with him, make it hard for him to maneuver around, pull out, so to speak, and we'll down that guy. So 2 Type 5s just swarmed, essentially. They're going to have a lot of trouble when they get swarmed by that many relatively fast-firing tanks. I got a Panther here, a grill. Come around the corner here and try to work one of these dudes over. There we go, and just trying to chase him. Oh, I was looking for the ram, couldn't quite get there. He's a little bit faster than I am. I'm exposing myself to TDs right here or anything else. Take him down, but I thought it was worth it to get rid of this guy. Plus, this is kind of clean up on aisle 2 time, and Scorpion's just sitting there for some unknown reason. He really wanted to get that shot off, but that would be the last one he gets. Hey, look, there's the artillery. Found him. And now we're... Oh! Super Conqueror found the other one. Hey, there we go. There's somebody running away. Looks like a Revelore Risey thing. No, terrible shot, but went through the side anyway. Making a run for it, creeping forward. Let's see if I can get one more shot on this. Oh, he stopped. Thank you very much. You're welcome, even less. There he goes. Maybe one more shot. He's running. Can't quite get there. Speed this thing up. Oh, look at that. Jag Tiger. Mr. JT takes a hit. Forward again. JT goes down to the artillery. Actually, artillery goes down to the artillery. JT is still there. So I'll move up, thinking to use the excellent hold-down turret capability of this tank. Find the JT right here. Oh, side armor, outstanding. One into him. Oh, there's an artillery. Somebody will shoot him, right? Nope. How about me? I'll shoot him. He's making a run for it. Clearly not reloaded. Holy cow, he says, don't do it. Don't do it. Down he goes. JT disappears in the bushes, but he's done. He's got very few hit points left. So he's going to get down the lower plate here. Or just hit the top plate, flat plated. So once he comes downhill like that, he's giving me that flat plate. That works for me. I actually eat a shot, I think. From him. Yeah. Yep, I eat a shot from the Rev. He goes right through me with a regular APCR. Or whether he went through my top armor or my lower plate, it's hard to tell, but he got through. That's a pretty good example of where the armor is just really not that fantastic sometimes. I don't see any holes, so he may have hit another weak spot somewhere. It's hard to tell really where that shot went. But not impenetrable, even by a tier 8 medium tank. That ends up being a pretty decent game as well. Another class 1, I believe, on that one as well. And 5,924 damage. 864 with 0 bounce, which was interesting. An example of 0 bounce on that one. All right, so that's the third example. Let's go to the wrap-up then. All right, wrapping up the review of the AMX M451. Overall, I really enjoyed this tank, actually. I'd put it in the top third, top quarter of all the tier 9s. And all the tier 9 heavies are actually pretty good. I mean, some people don't like the 4502 with the rear turret. Some people don't like the squishiness of the T10. But really, they've all got their recommendations. And this one is pretty much the whole package all around. Great frontal armor. The turret's fantastic. Enough depression to make it work. The gun is actually pretty darn good and accurate. The mobility is really good for a tier 9 heavy tank out there. The one thing it doesn't really have that surprised me a little bit is, even though this is supposed to be the heavily armored French line, I think the whole armor really falls down just a little bit on this tank. Tier 8s to some extent, and tier 7s will have trouble penning it, but most tier 8s, and pretty much all the tier 10s, are not going to have a whole lot of trouble finding a place to shoot this guy in the front. However, if you're able to hide the hole and just stick your turret out, they're going to have all kinds of trouble and are going to have to rely on weak spots like the hatch and the rooftop and crap like that. So, pretty good tank. I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. As I showed you earlier, I did pretty well in it overall. The question was, yeah, I never did master it, so there you go. It's only on a mastery 1. Even up to 1,500 base on the one game. So, eventually that will normalize and come down a little bit lower, and a 13 or 1400 will probably be good enough for it, more than likely. But right now, lots of good players playing it. And that is the review on the M451. I would actually recommend going back to the M445, grinding through the slightly painful tier 8 to get to the tier 9, because the 9 is really good and probably worth getting as a tier 9 heavy. I will review the tier 10 after I get a little bit more experience in it. All right, guys, thanks for coming by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you learned a little bit something there. A little bit something. A little something. If you did, make sure you subscribe, and we will see you.